of Kittens and Broken Things, Chapter 14. Lal took the tentative win of Sir Krios's recruitment, arranging to meet on the Normandy later, giving him time to manage any business or personal concerns he might have. She did not ask what they might be. He'd continued to glow as they parted company, and she wondered if she'd see him again. It was possible he'd only told her what she wanted to hear. That would result in a track record of 1 out of 5. Slightly worse, because it was not her rejecting him, but him playing her and then abandoning the agreement. This incarnation of Shepard was turning out to be not so persuasive. Shore leave was called. Adams, Kenneth, and Gabby wanted to play with some of the components available on Ilium. Gardner wanted to check out the markets. Lal needed to somehow find out if she could procure bulk raspberry jam for baking. Seedless would be best, but maybe she could only find something with seeds and she'd have to melt it and strain it. Could she get it dehydrated? Could she sift seeds from the powder? Maybe she couldn't find it at all and she had to find a raspberry alternative. She'd been on Ilium a few days now, and blessedly the place Liara arranged for her was beautiful, had a glorious view of Ilium while still being private. Liara assured her the glass was secure. So that was fun. Outside dark, can't see inside. Inside glittering Ilium. Outside dark, can't see inside. Inside glittering Ilium. She'd run outside and then inside several times. Then she'd looked up all the ways to make different grades of transparent materials secure and still maintain its transparency. Fascinating stuff. Liara came over on the second evening. Lal was working on the loads of data she could find on Asari Justicars. Shepard was a Spectre, but she had her own code. The Justicar code was not clear, but she could see from methods and results that she maybe couldn't use Samara on her squad, may not be able to afford her in several ways, in an ethical sense. She would have to wait and see. Lal wanted to ask Liara about Orbiston's opinion of the mission and Shepard, but didn't. He doesn't like me, or why doesn't he like me? Was probably something Liara would sympathize with, but Lal felt like she was always on the edge of about to cry on the subject, and didn't want to push herself over. She was grateful their relationship was now professional and stable. She could accept no positive change on the basis of knowing how much more disastrous negative change would be. She'd limited her crying to Garrus and didn't want to branch out. She wanted to enjoy her meal and relax, and she had enough trouble with the communication issue, which she did bring up with Liara by telling her, "So, I need to be able to talk to Garrus." "You're not already? I assumed we'd communicate only when I was on the Citadel." "You what?" "He's plotting my painful death, telling me about it in detail and then assuring me he loves me too much to do it." "I'll find something. You're worried about decryption or surveillance?" "Both. Neither of you can guarantee that our messages won't be intercepted or that we're not under sophisticated surveillance. Garrus just won't accept that." "How do you know that, if you're not talking?" "He's talking to me. I'm not talking to him. He sends daily death threats and motivation. If you can help, I don't know everything about hacking anymore." "I'll catch you up. There are ways. I'll get you set up. You're right. Not communicating is the only way to assure you are not giving anything away. But he's smart and he's careful. So am I. Let me raise your confidence level." Lal looked at her and did not say that he wasn't smart enough, wasn't careful enough. But that's how she really felt. She did say, "He has been reckless, romantic and reckless. I've seen pictures of the inside of his office. There's his crest, and all anybody needs is one shred of confirmation." Liara knew Garrus well enough at this point to agree that Lal had to talk to him. That she hadn't been talking to him was... "Oh, goddess. You haven't talked to him since?" Lal shook her head. "Since I left the Citadel. No, 2 days before. Please don't yell at me. I didn't ask for him to bond to me. I can't dive straight into bond and truth and still be Shepard. I'm sorry that it's killing him, but I can't let it kill me." "But it is." "Yeah, it is. Don't you want to be bonded?" Lal closed her eyes and imagined days and nights spent thinking about him even before she'd died. Apple juice threats and how much that alone had made her terminally nervous. "Liara, what I am is guilty, and he's bonded to someone he can't have. If he had chosen a lovely Taurian lady while I was gone, I'd feel awful, but it would be the right thing for him, and I'd be happy for him. Eventually, I'm the wrong thing for him. And now he has no choice, and I feel awful. And I want to talk to him every day. And I shouldn't. I don't understand why he can't have you. Please don't take this the wrong way. You not being able to read me like a user's manual is a little comforting. I know you can't possibly doubt how much I love him, even if you didn't blink after he'd kissed me. The only way that's changed is... there's more of it. If he knows who I am, Liara, who I really am, how much I love him, how much this hurts, how much I am not Shepard, and therefore not destined to have to be Shepard, he would discover quickly that I could be Kara full-time, and he could share that with me. He would give me choices, and then when I didn't make those choices the way he wanted me to, he would make those choices for me. He would ask me to leave command. He would insist. Liara had put her plate down, a hard thunk on the glass table that made Kara look. But Kara continued while Liara stared at her and didn't speak herself. I'm afraid he's going to accidentally on purpose make it known that he is bonded to me, then not fight back when Palaven calls for his removal. It's what he wants. It's what his bond is demanding, that he have me close, that he protect me. Then he'd move to the ship with me, and I would not say no. I'm afraid I'm going to tell him every wish of my heart until he knows that the best thing for me is to take me away. I won't be able to stop him. I can't see where I can be Kara and Shepard at the same time. He doesn't even know my real last name. That he knows my real first name is too much for him to know. No sex, because if I do that, that's everything. I'd give everything. And he'd take it. It would be wonderful, romantic, blissful, and then the galaxy loses Vicarian and Shepard. And not to sound egotistical here, but I am expensive and a lot of people are counting on me. He is even more valuable, and a lot of people I can't help on my own are counting on him. Can you imagine what the galaxy would be like if he hadn't become the counselor? If he doesn't continue in the position as it gets harder and harder? I can. It's grim. How do I choose my own happiness, and therefore his, up against that? I don't have any no if he has all the yes. I can't lie to him. I can choose a moment in time where I can give him everything, but his bond says now. I can't choose us. I can't choose now. I can't give him any less than everything. I won't. If I lied to him, I wouldn't deserve him. He's given everything. I can't do less. I won't. I've told him that after the war. Liara was stiff and worried and said with a dawning tinge of horror, I should tell you that I was unaware of any of that. I didn't know you weren't talking to him, or why. He's on his way here. He's... What? I talked to him often. I mentioned you were here. I asked if he could contribute anything from council files about Thane Krios. If not that, then gossip, anything. He couldn't, and then he said he was coming for a visit. I thought it would be a lovely surprise. Romantic. Now, I am afraid I am going to be accessory to murder. Possibly mine. I am so sorry. Lal tipped her head back on the couch. It's not your fault. Counselor Vicarian is resourceful. I'd ask you to change the codes and move me out of here, but it won't work. Sounds like an old movie. Ilium isn't big enough for the two of us. Showdown. Liara smiled and said while trying not to laugh, I really am sorry. Yeah, you and me. Thank you for telling me. Don't worry, we'll manage. I'll manage. Somehow. When does he get here? 3 hours. Ha! Oh, okay. No pressure. Is he planning on surprising me? He'll come straight here. We have security covered. He isn't traveling as Counselor Vicarian, and he'll use an assumed identity, so there won't be a way to correlate that he's here at the same time as the Normandy. We're not stupid, I promise. Lal thought of just a few of the ways that they were stupid. Relatively. Liara, I say this with love. You're both kind of stupid, and what you want to be true and are insisting is true can be made not true by someone with a little more imagination. Okay. I deserve that. And so does he. But he loves you so much. And he's stupid. I'm talking relatively stupid here, not extraordinarily stupid. Okay, I take that back. Stupid about the extraordinary. You are maybe thinking there's a 99.9% probability that nothing will be discovered, but I live in that 0.1% space. That 0.1% is worth a counselor's seat and all the influence that goes with it. I make those 0.1% things happen. That's why I'm so expensive. Unfortunately, I can think of a lot of ways to track Counselor Vicarian through the data of his life's patterns without active surveillance on him personally. Change in pattern means change in behavior. All those patterns say a lot, when you can't have eyes directly on a person. Correlation is all that's needed for his political opponents to gain blackmail material. All they need to do is start with a theory. If Vakarian is bonded to Shepard, he would like to meet with her as much as possible, and that meeting would be a jackpot of political options. A low-value meeting would be me appearing before the council. A high-value meeting would be his absence from the Citadel while his identity was obscured. He wants to keep something hidden. They threaten to reveal it. Definitely worth the extra analysis of an already over-observed personality. So they watch. Now, let me make an educated guess. Counselor Vakarian is like clockwork. Always to work early, but probably the same time every day. Very reliable. Loyal. Likely a bright spot in other people's days. Certainly an authority that is otherwise marked when absent. Someone others do not take for granted. Eats the same things, orders from the same places, tips high, meets the same people. Friendly. An obvious presence that is missed when absent. Talks to people in the office, knows everyone's name, that their child has a fever, cares about them. Am I right? Liara nodded numbly. But now there are changes in those patterns. Potential blackmailers know where I am because of birthing records here. Even if nobody knows exactly where I am in any particular moment in time, my location is pinned to the Normandy. Add to that Garrus's disrupted patterns. Absent biometrics at predictable times, canceled appointments, video conferences instead of time on the tower, that guy on the second floor that he always waves to on his way by, wondering where Counselor Vakarian is today. Someone in a restaurant hopefully anticipating that he's going to ask for Garrus, his usual Thursday lunch. He will leave a Counselor Vakarian-sized hole in the data. That is more than enough to make an educated guess and a bet that takes no ante, only a potential payoff. They can tell him, "We know you were with Commander Shepard on such and so." That bet can be repeated indefinitely. They use those guesses, and he's too honest or too prone to want to get caught to deny it. He's relieved someone knows, and the choice is out of his hands. He, of all people, should know better about secrets being kept on the Citadel. But you guys think there isn't another me out there who can decrypt what you work hard to keep hidden. The truth is, they don't need another me. They just need someone or someones who are thorough. This is Bond, Liara, and it's Garrus. Will and passion, that leaves a mark on my skin and in his life. And he wants the marks to stay. They're valued because they represent something to him, something he does not want to deny. You asked me if I wanted Bond. You should ask Garrus if he wants it. I promise you that being under that bond means his answer has to be yes. He is driven as much by that yes as I am by no. It takes away his choices as much as it takes away mine. I can't explain it to him. That would just help him along the way toward getting what he wants. The only thing I can do is delay him, ask him to accept delay, and I see how well that's working. I still have some choices. I'm not sure he does. He's persuasive enough to convince himself that he's doing the right thing by joining me. He's motivated to make you feel secure in helping him, and that love will find a way because that's what his blood is telling him. You want us to be happy. And all our enemies need is one lucky day or one really sneaky inspiration. It might have already happened. It gets exponentially more likely to happen after days like today. It's okay, and I'll figure it out. Of course you know I'm not angry. Thank you for the heads up. Please, at some point in the next 3 hours, contact him and let him know that I insisted that you find a way for us to communicate before I try to convince him of that after the fact. I won't have to act surprised that he's here. I will still be surprised that he's here 3 hours from now. I thought you said you wouldn't lie to him. Like I can keep that promise. I mostly mean I won't lie to him about the nature of the inner workings of my soul. He's already forced me to shepherd him because he is counseloring me hard. Oh, that sounded wrong. Counterplotting his plots is going to be mandatory and unavoidable. Please get that way to communicate to us before he leaves. How long is he staying? He did not say. Huh, of course he didn't. Hey, you know where to get raspberry jam. Liara left shortly after, relatively terrified. She was a good shadow broker, she knew it, but she wasn't an agent on the ground. She collected the information and she had that in place, but Lal's head, what she did with the information. Liara felt like someone with the greatest library in the galaxy, someone who read all the text and missed the volumes of subtext and possibility. Liara had been manipulated by Garrus, and he was doing exactly what Kara feared, chipping away at something she needed to keep whole. Liara had thought she had been sophisticated. Lal's head was a frightening place. Liara forgot that in the soft and smooth background of Kara. But she really, really did want Garrus to be happy, wanted them both to be happy. Watching him over those years had been impossible to bear. Now for them to have this chance and to lose it. 2 years of hope and her wanting it so much for them. The fact that all that goodwill might sabotage galactic events. She composed herself as much as possible and prepared to contact Garrus, wondering how Kara would manage and suddenly feeling on very shaky footing where Garrus was concerned. Her perspective had flipped between Liara the woman, who wanted her friends to find a happy ending, at least a happy middle, and Liara the woman who was the shadow broker and should have known better. What else didn't she know? How did Kara do this every day? She took a deep breath and opened a channel to Garrus, who answered immediately. She tried to sound bright, and hopefully she didn't sound falsely bright. She's settled in, same location. She's asked me to set up a secure way for you both to communicate on top of what you have, so I'll get that to you as soon as possible.
Thank you, Liara. What do you think will work?
I have a few ideas. I'll run it through Farron and get back to you. I'm hoping for more protocols in your Omni tools, so it should be convenient. I hope you enjoy your visit. Come by and see me if you can.
Or you come by and see us. I may not be able to leave.
Liara thought. You don't want to leave, Garrus. At all. It would have sounded adorable a few hours ago. Now it was hopefully not prophetic. She told him, I don't want to miss it. I'll check in tomorrow. How long are you staying?
Not sure yet. I wanted to ask you something.
What is it?
You've been in her head. I see analysis of Commander Shepard, and nobody ever describes her as beautiful. She's beautiful. Do you think she doesn't think so? I need to fix that.
Liara swallowed hard, wanting to cry. She thought of the inside of Kara's head and the distinction between pretty and beautiful, and then the content of articles and memorials for Commander Shepard. Garrus was not wrong about public opinion. She was always described with synonyms for small and determined and nondescript, childlike if not childish. From there, it could be callous. Other words, underdeveloped and scrawny. Liara knew her and had never looked at it from that angle. What if those who met Lal for the first time expected a physical myth to match the stories of her will? She was most often described as missing something expected. She was expected to be the epitome of human allure, and there was always some side comment about all the missing space she did not take up in superlative expectation. It was accepted objective truth that meeting her unless it was on the other side of her gun or wits would be a disappointment. She was lacking height, lacking color, lacking curves, lacking volume. Most notable for lacking, it would seem. In her public interviews, she was always solemn and boring. Neither Liara nor Garrus were experts on human beauty, but the idea that Garrus thought Lal was keeping herself from him because she was shy about that. Goddess, Liara didn't even know. Liara picked through that and said, "That's a value judgment. If anybody knows she's valuable, it's Lal. I don't think she cares what anybody else's opinion about her appearance is. She knows you love her, and you know she's beautiful. That's all that matters to her." Garrus smiled, but she wasn't sure he believed her. She wasn't sure she believed herself.
Thanks, Liara. All the ways I could get this wrong. I don't want to get this wrong.
He looked down, distracted.
Thank you, Liara, for everything.
He cut off contact. He sounded so grateful and so broken. She didn't doubt that he loved Kara with everything, and now that was frightening where before it had been conspiratorially adorable. "You have got a lot to learn, T'Soni. You're barely over 100, and you have been acting as though you are a matron who knows what's best for her children." She was worried about Kara for a lot of reasons, one of which was the look in Russ's eyes when conversation turned to her. He was respectful and lacking all warmth. It had seemed off, and Liara had wondered if he was distracted by all the sideways glances he earned at any bar. Well, anywhere. He'd quickly excused himself, and he seemed to be well known at Eternity. He hadn't stayed for long, leaving with the inevitable, magnificent Vicarian. Russ was definitely never described as lacking anything expected from a Spectre. His comments had leaned toward, "Yeah, Shepard's something. I've never seen anybody like her." All in face value approving, looking somewhat deeper than face value. All careful, all potentially stripped of positive meaning. All possible to be leaning the other way. Now that she thought about it, she was sure of it. That was so unlike him. Kara wouldn't discuss Russ at all. That was like her, but why? They should have gotten along, and if they weren't getting along, what was wrong? The mission? Or something else? Both? More? There were too many possible reasons for Russ disliking Kara to be as volatile as Garrus adoring her. Russ was as loyal to Garrus as Garrus was to Kara, and if Garrus was unhappy and Lal was avoiding him... Liara closed her eyes and felt the urge to pray. Was Garrus asking Russ for advice as he just asked Liara? Was Garrus asking Russ if she was okay? Was Russ resenting the hell out of her for not saying so herself? She had suspected that Russ had been in love with Garrus for a long time, but she didn't know. Was it worse or better if he was or wasn't? She thought Garrus knew. How could he not? Now, how much of everything in the volatile mix, the volume, mattered? And Liara couldn't answer those questions. What if Russ was unhappy because Kara was not executing as Shepard? If it weren't for Kaden behaving as though everything were better than fine, Lal was definitely herself. What if Kaden was lying for some reason? I don't know what's really happening, and that might mean the people I love die. That might mean everyone dies. Goddess, please guide me. And I just helped add an assassin of unknown provenance because Kara is desperate for help. Garrus wants her off her mission, and Russ will want to keep her alive. Possibly only so far. Goddess, please protect me from my extraordinary stupidity. Please protect them. Kara had wondered if Garrus would just let himself in, but he did knock first. She closed her eyes in deep relief. Garrus climbing into her bed at midnight would have been too much. He was still too much, but at least he had some semblance of boundary remaining. She had to work with that. She had to be on stage. She needed a Kara 2.0. She couldn't be Shepard. And there went the full thickness, skin-deep flush at knowing he was there. She said calmly, as though awaiting room service. Yes?
Kara, it's Garrus.
It sounded like he'd practiced saying that for hours in front of a mirror. It would have taken her that much time to even attempt to get that much... all that feeling in there. And there went her knees. Garrus? Hopefully that sounded like happy surprise, not terror. Definitely not terror.
Yes, I needed to see you.
Oh, I'm Garrus. I'm so glad you're here. Wait, I'm just out of the bath. Hold on, not dressed. She leaned against the door, having kept her hair damp, fully dressed.
I can help with that.
No, just wait. Please. She hoped she sounded playful and not terrified.
Okay, I'll wait. I'm warning you, though. It's probably a security risk for me to just be standing here.
Bath, Garrus.
Yes, ma'am.
And he did. He waited, and that's what she needed to know. She could delay him. Oh, this is... She opened the door and stepped back as he swept in. With luggage. Oh, dear. Luggage down and his eyes finding hers. Glowing, advancing Turian was always a shock. And then she was disoriented because he picked her up and pressed her against the wall of security glass, his body against hers, and his arms moving her legs around his hip spurs, looking down as though to make sure she was comfortable and that he wasn't pinching her. But he still had to look far down from his full height to her face, which was burning and dizzy. He blinked slowly once, his shoulders straightening. He leaned in, making him seem a little taller, and he was closer, and her back slid up the glass in warm friction. Nice of him to make sure her thighs were not pinched, but everything else was. He smiled at her.
I saw you got my messages. I saw you looked at them a lot. That was gratifying.
Oh, no.
Liara says you're going to answer me now, so I'm glad that's straightened out. Let me hear it from you. You're going to answer me now, right?
She nodded.
He shook his head solemnly. No, 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 not that. I want to hear it. I've been telling you I want to hear it. So let me hear it, Kara.
I'm going to answer you.
Every day.
Every day. He closed his eyes and leaned down to her throat. He breathed hard, in through his nose, as though she were a drug he was inhaling. And maybe she was. His voice was near her ear, his breath tickling, and her spine trying to stiffen though it was melting.
What's my job, Kara?
She didn't answer. He laughed, a huff of air forced against her skin.
Someday I'm going to get you to use your words. My job is to reach out across species borders, learn other cultures, accommodate compromise. So I can't just be Turian, can I? Not in a proposed human-Turian relationship. Don't human men fight for what they want? Imagine my relief when I realized that it's my job to understand that the woman I am in love with is human.
Oh, no. She couldn't answer. She still only had, Garrus, please. And that would be the end. The cultural arms race was going to kill her. Just as arms were going to kill her. Disarm the advancing Turian. She didn't have to lie. She just looked at him the way she did from the other side of the Omnitool when he couldn't see, and told him, I missed you. He closed his eyes and pressed his crest to her hair.
I have missed you.
He murmured some words she did not understand. What did you say?
Side effect of death threats. You're like a caltrop, no matter which way you turn.
Caltrops, spiked implements of war, intended to have a point straight up no matter how they fell. Scatter them and any path would be impassable until cleared. Delaying tactic. Fitting. I'm like just one caltrop? She tried to inject mild offense and humor. Disarm the glowing Turian.
Hardly. There was a Turian battle, each road of approach covered in caltrops. The rivers trapped with obstacles that gouged out the bottoms of boats, and I feel like I'm fighting it.
What's the name of this battle?
Kara.
No, really.
The Siege of Limieth.
Garrus, Limayeth is yours. So are all the caltrops, unfortunately. I love you. I miss you. I'm sorry you were worried. I told you that you couldn't stop me from trying to protect you.
Kiss me, Limieth, please. I won't talk. I need Please, it's not fair, but I'm begging you, kiss me. We know you can survive that. Trust me not to take more. Reverie, but no words other than I love you. They all mean I love you.
I know they do. I love you. Her hands moved to his face, her pinky fingers sliding between his jaw and mandible. He pulled them tight to trap her fingers. Her palms were on plate, and then she was falling. Her eyes closed, and she gave him what she promised she wouldn't, took what she told herself she couldn't. Neither of them knew how to kiss. Not really, not artful or practiced. They were tentative and surprised, gestures made and interrupted because of the effect they had, overwhelming and incomplete, starting over again and again. Reverie was secondary to the right to kiss each other at all.
He hadn't really known what to expect, what to do, how to ask, what to say, just that he had to see her, had to feel her, had to know all the little things about her that were vital to his peace of mind. She wasn't injured. She didn't look like she had been crying. She knew he thought she was beautiful. She let him in. She'd watched his messages over and over. He'd kissed her before, and that had been taking too much. Her kissing him was giving. Exhausted by feeling wrong and driven and unbearably selfish, the slightest pressure from her hands, her lips, and to have her give something he would have bet the Citadel she wouldn't. But he asked anyway, because he couldn't not try, not with her. He was desperate. Limayeth, key to a continent on Palaven, the end of a dynasty, the beginning of a new one. Control her gates and everything else fell. Be kissed by her and continents faded away and dynasties did not matter, and he would not speak, but would be kissed until she had no words of her own. Limayeth, wherever the light of the moons and sun shone, all knew her name. Wherever the light of all moons, all suns shone, she was the water of the river, the traps at the bottom, the roads that led to other conquests and the caltrops, and all he wanted was the gate opening to him because he had asked, because he was dying. He wouldn't have to go through that again, she'd promised. He believed, the gift of her voice and her kiss and her future. All the silence meant he loved her too. She kissed him, breath and water, to an exhausted and despairing soul, and then he carried her to a couch, kissed her more, did not speak, and held her until she slept, finally able to face out from inside the fortress rather than being left outside. He could do something with her, not opposing her. He didn't want to sleep, but he hadn't been able to sleep well since she'd left, part of his desperation. For the first time he fell asleep with her in his arms, a long watch over, and faith that she would be there when he woke. She would not leave him.